see so many of you here, particularly order members. It's amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming. And I just wanted to welcome Jnanarati's family that I can see up there. And I know Judith, so that's Padma's wife, is here, and a friend, I think. Yeah, so it's lovely to see people that are not necessarily from the Sangha, so it's really lovely. And I wish you a very warm welcome, and also I'm imagining that the Welsh Sangha is going to be listening to this and watching this very carefully. So that's great that you're hopefully on there. Okay, well, this is really just a fantastic occasion. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, and I'll just explain what's going to happen in a minute. But first of all, I'd like to salute the shrine together with and we'll do that in four response. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo and then to Dharmacharinis, who's going to do some photographs. That's good, thank you very much. And also a big thank you to the centre team, the centre basically, just for making this whole venue to happen. And they've put an awful lot of work in setting things up. So unfortunately they're not going to be here, which is unfortunate, but I'd like to thank the centre and the team. And then, well, there are just many people that have contributed in many ways. So, for example, making cakes, I haven't seen any, but I presume they're there. And just helping, setting up the shrine room, welcoming people. Yeah, so there's a lot of people that have contributed to this, making this happen. And then also a very special thank you to the people that actually sort of made the shrine. It's really beautiful. So thank you. It was a team led by...
Well, I was in the team, but it was me, Lizzie, Hannah, Rebecca and Andrew.
So a big team, so thank you very much. And also I'm thanking people in advance for those that are going to stay behind at the end of the because we do need some help with that. But anyway, thanks in advance for that. Okay, so I just want to just briefly mention what's going to happen. So these lovely three beings. Well, first of all, we were here about 4 months ago. where we had this amazing send-off to Jane Turner, Miriam Brod, and Miriam Lynn. And Padma Shuri was here and was talking about the body importance and what ordination meant. And the first and the second part of the ordination. So they have gone through that process. They've gone on their epic maiden journey to Akashavana, where they were joined by sort of 17 other women. No, 17 was 15, wasn't it? With 15, 16, 16. And the team, all the members of 5. Yeah, so they created this community. And they created this community where they were working towards their ordination, basically, getting prepared. And they were all doing that in their very different ways. And this evening we're going to hear a sort of a snippet as to what happened, because they were there for, I think, nearly 11 weeks, I think. Yeah, 11 weeks. So we haven't got loads of time, because we also need to have tea and cake. And of course we'll be doing that after the puja, so that'll be the second half. So basically, I'm sure you don't want to hear me waffling away. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask Upekshavani, who's going to be the first one, and then she will, her offering is going to be a reading, but she will introduce that. And at the end, I'd just like us to just have some silence, just to take in what has been said. And then I will gong a bell, and then Jnanarati will come. Her offering is going to be something else. Oh, well, it'll be in the puja. Yes. That's what I was going to say. Sorry. Yeah, so I wasn't going to say something new to you. And then, so then after Jnanarati has done her then we'll have Jnanapadma. And what's really, I don't know whether you've noticed, but actually it's been really interesting. So we've got the 2 Miriams, and then it's come back with 2 Jnana. That was not deliberate. Anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to ask Upekshavani to come in. Now, is this going around here? Is that okay with you?
Can you turn it? I think turn it round. Yeah.
I'd like to ask Holly to do the reading as an offering, and it's a reading that I heard at Akashavana fairly early on, which really resonated with me, and I think when you hear my talk you understand why. So this is from Into the Heart of Life by Tenzin Palmo. Things are constantly flowing, constantly appearing and disappearing. It's like a dance. And we have to give each being space to dance their dance. Everything is dancing. Even the molecules inside the cells are dancing. But we make our lives so heavy. We have these incredibly heavy burdens we carry with us, like rocks in a big rucksack. We think carrying this big heavy rucksack is our security. We think it grounds us. We don't realise that freedom, the lightness of just dropping it off, letting it go. That doesn't mean giving up relationships. It doesn't mean giving up one's profession, or one's family, or one's home. It has nothing to do with that. It's not an external change, it's an internal change. It's a change from holding on tightly to holding very lightly.
So, in the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to try and give you a flavour of what something that is indescribable, but I shall have a go. I may cry a bit, but no surprises there. So please bear with me. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do some thank yous first, and then talk about my journey to Akashavana, the reason I cut my hair off, silence, receiving my name, and my sergeant. So I shall start with my deep gratitude to the Buddha and then to Sangharakshita, without whom none of us would be here. And then to my private preceptor, Virajyoti, and my Kula, Padmajata, Sadahidaya, Sagragosha, and Kamlamati, for your encouragement, friendship, and humour throughout my ordination process. You have all been such an important part of this journey for me. And my GFR group, Holly, Alison, Emma, Sarah, and Mary. I can't wait to see each of you up here giving your talk. So no pressure. The retreat team, Punyamala, Suchimani, Pranyashri, Akashajyoti, and Shradamayi, who worked tirelessly and wholeheartedly throughout the weeks. I was in awe at the depth of their Dharma practice and their wisdom and the care and support they offered each one of us. It was truly remarkable. And there is one other person I must thank, without whom I really would not be here. My wonderful husband, Sargit. I watched your journey with true random curiosity and slowly came to see that you had found something, a truth in the three jewels, a path that led to deep and lasting happiness. I followed you onto that path, and every step of the way, you have loved me, supported me, encouraged me to be the person I am today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for holding everything miles away, but it wasn't easy. So, on to the journey to Akashavana. Jnanarati and Jnanapadma and I travelled together. The whole journey was so smooth, easy and harmonious, and for me it was a delight spending time with these two beautiful beings, getting to know them better. The kindness of people who helped carry luggage, directed us to the right places, helped get taxis, assisted us with ordering vegan food. It felt like people were just stepping in when it was needed, where it was needed, and it felt like the cosmos was gently ushering us on our way. And this continued all the way to Akashavana. There was something very special in how receptive and open I felt throughout this journey and connected with the people that I came across. So arriving at Akashavana, the magic didn't stop, but it seemed to intensify. And as I approached the retreat centre and took in the majesty and vastness of the landscape and the sky, I burst into tears. It was absolutely breathtaking and remained so throughout the 11 weeks I was there. From the very beginning, the place spoke to me in symbols, signs and myth, and the trees, clouds and wildlife were all alive with meaning. My first day there, Amoga Siddhi appeared in the sky as a massive cloud formation. The trees seemed to take on a life of their own. They had their own faces. I tried to draw them with Jnanapadma, I couldn't see it. Successful. I gave up and just sat with them, acknowledging their presence. I felt deeply connected to the land and its creatures. I was simply another being passing through, no more or less important, and possibly more of an intruder into their world. It was a constant reminder of conditioned co-production and my place in the web of existence. There were so many more special moments I could share, but I won't, because I don't want to spoil it for the next ordinance who will be heading to Akashavana. There's a particular kind of magic waiting there, and it's best to be discovered for yourself. So the next significant moment was when I decided to cut my hair. It It was one that marked a culmination of a long process of letting go of wrong views and false refuges. Possibly for decades, I have lived with the view that if I could control my hair, I could somehow control my life. Not chisel, but it ran very deep. Those who knew me when I first came to the Buddhist Centre in 2014, I had very straight, blonde hair, very much controlled, in its place and tidy. A bad hair day meant a bad day, full stop. It would mean I'd lost control, and I lost control frequently. I believed if I looked together, organised, how society and fashion dictated a successful woman, a happy wife and mother should look, then somehow I would become that person. Needless to say, it didn't quite work out. I'm sure we all recognise this tendency in ourselves in different ways. The false refuges we go to for happiness. Mine, amongst a whole host of others, was hair. It also became something I could hide behind. In a way, of taking on a persona that I could present to the world, that would be seen as acceptable, that would be seen that I would be good enough, not feeling different, not quite outside of everything. There was a lot of fear of being seen for who I am and who I wanted to be. Over the years, I've worked with these samskaras and views, and over time, I let my natural waves come through and the colour grow out, and that felt like progress. However, the faffing about with it and the hiding was still there and making me feel more and more uncomfortable. There was still something that needed to be integrated so that I could let go of old stories that were no longer relevant or helpful from such a long time ago. And this retreat was the perfect opportunity to take the next step. But of course I had no idea how I would feel afterwards. It could have gone horribly wrong, and I could have ended up feeling worse. But somehow I knew that through the momentum of my practice, my faith, and a deeper understanding of myself, this needed to be done. And so how do I feel now? I do feel like a new person. Apart from the practical wins, it doesn't take hours to wash and dry my hair, literally 5 minutes. I've saved so much time and energy that hopefully I can spend in more positive and helpful ways. I feel more myself, more visible. Like I'm finally front and centre in my own life, without the need to hide. I feel freer and more confident in being true to myself, my values, my Buddhist practice. And to share that moment with others on the retreat made it an even more touching and remarkable experience. So speaking of other people on the retreat, I would like to rejoice in the 3 that have managed to come up from London today. Thank you. But for me, it was a wonderful, enlightening and deeply connecting experience. It wasn't always easy living in close quarters with 23 other beings. But what was obvious was the depth and sincerity in which people were practicing and going for refuge. And this created a sangha that was full of support, harmony and connection. Everyone brought their own unique talents and gifts, freely shared with one another, the retreat leaders and teachers, therapists and artists, singers, directors, composers of mantras and songs, carers, writers, dancers and gardeners, even a wonderfully skilled acupuncturist. What a diverse and talented community we were, all connected by the central thread of our lives, our going for refuge and our ordination. At times I was gently nudged out of my comfort zone and found myself doing things I never imagined and thoroughly enjoying them. And around my fear of giving talks, amongst others, I think Gunasaki and Anantakirti both said, "Get up first, then you can relax and enjoy the other talks that follow." Here I am. I learned so much from you all. I am forever grateful. And the other thing that was extremely special to me was the silence. I have always enjoyed silence on retreats, and this was no different. I am something of an introvert, so taking away the pressure of talking allowed me to go deeper into my experience without the distractions of daily life at home. There was no getting away from how tight and small I can be sometimes. At times this was incredibly painful to notice how I would place myself at the centre of everything that was happening. It was all about me. When I didn't feel seen, acknowledged in the way I hoped, I could feel distant and alienated. There were moments when, because I was feeling tired or feeling a bit raw, I misread the intentions or communication of others, misinterpreting humour for judgment. But in the silence, I was able to see these reactions for what they were. My own tender places, my own projections, revealing where I felt vulnerable and in need of exploration. It allows space and time to reflect more deeply on the three lakshanas and my own conditioning, to soften, meet myself and others with more metta and compassion. At the same time, in that deep silence, I could sit for hours watching the grass blowing in the breeze. I felt the boundaries around me begin to thin, the edges of my being become less fixed, more spacious, more porous. I felt connected and part of everything. I began to find communication much easier. I felt more emotionally attuned, more authentic. Words often obscure what's really going on for me, and in that silence, that deeper layer was visible and shared. It was very beautiful and precious time. And then there's my name, Upekshavani, the equanimous voiced one. I loved my name from the moment Bridget gave it to me. Whenever I say it, it sounds and feels calm, solid, grounded and balanced, which deeply resonates with me. After my private ordination, I spent a few hours happily reflecting on the aspects of my name, Upeksha, equanimity. It's linked to the Brahma Viharas, and I could understand where Virajyoti had seen the potential in me to develop that more. How in the midst of suffering, beauty is also always there. How important it is to me not to get blown around by the worldly winds, and to really want to see what the I is bringing to my experience. But the other bit of my name, Vani, voice. That's quite a different kettle of fish. The speech precepts have long been my working ground. I had even spoken to Virajyoti about this a few days before my ordination. But now it was part of my name. It was public, for all to see. I didn't want the whole world to know how rubbish I am, how unskillful my speech could be. And the old stories about being a failure and not good enough, which were once tangled in my hair, began tangling in my name. That was really interesting. I did try telling Virajyoti I thought my name was way too big, and I would never be able to live up to it, or be able to do it. And Virajyoti very kindly and firmly told me the name was staying. And then went on to tell me all the ways she had already seen it alive in me and the potential she saw for it to grow even more. So what a gift. To be seen clearly and so deeply. Thank you. So I feel my name also links me to my sadhana. So you might have guessed from my mention of the cloud formation earlier that I took a Yoga Siddhi as my sadhana. His presence was with me constantly at Akashavana, through the gentle breezes and fierce stormy winds through the pine trees. I've long felt a deep connection with the Green Buddha of the North, his quality of fearless compassion in action. His element is air, which is also linked to sound and voice. Although he is moving through the air on a chariot pulled by shangshan birds, he is sat perfectly still. His symbols, the double vajra and the shangshan birds, represent the union of opposites. He is the Buddha in infallible success, the Lord of great transformation. He reminds me again and again of the strength that lies in stillness, in equanimity. He appears from the midnight sky of deepest consciousness and shows me that turning towards the dark, shadowy parts of myself is not something to fear, but a path to illumination, a transformation to beauty. And that possibility of transformation is now constantly with me in my daily practice and in many other ways. So, moving on to the trip home from Akashavana, which was in many ways the opposite of the one we took out. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and at times frightening. The atmosphere on one of the trains back to Paris was aggressive, and the conditions behind it all were deeply saddening. It was like the cosmos had shifted from ushering us to beauty and solitude to showing us the world suffering writ large. Do you really want to go back there and be part of this, it seemed to say. And yet it felt like the three of us seemed to be a small oasis of calm, compassion and metta. And it was curious how some people gravitated towards us in the midst of this chaos, just wanting to talk and even saying how different we seemed. For me, it was a clear indication of how much the retreat and my ordination had changed me. And so how do I feel now? I feel like I've outgrown the little pot I went to Akashavana in and have come back in a much larger pot, one that is more solid, with a bigger base, plenty of room to grow, and able to hold whatever life brings, all the messiness, pain and joy without tipping over. And if I look closely, it is gilded, glowing with beautiful seed syllables and shining brightly from within. So I shall keep polishing and nurturing the being in this beautiful pot by honouring my ordination vows and deepening my commitment to the three jewels. I'm not sure where all this will lead, but as the Buddha said, with mindfulness, strive on, and in doing that, I feel anything is possible.
To everyone online. Some of our ordination sisters are online. Omega, Moksha Gandhi. Hopefully virtually see you all. Lovely to soul. It's going soul similar territory. Yeah, I'll just start with a memory from walking towards Akashavana. So the last bit of the journey, it was possible to walk for a period, a couple of hours or something. As I was walking, there was a sign on the side of the road, and it was just a white rectangle, and it had nothing written on it, no symbols, no nothing, just a white rectangle. And I thought, ooh. Showing us what is to come. Just something signless here. Yeah. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah. So I'll cover a few things in my talk. I'm going to talk about community. I'm going to talk about silence. I'm going to talk about music. I'm going to talk about my name. About precariousness. And I've got some dedication. So yeah, community. As you said, symmetry. We weren't only meditating for 11 weeks, we were in a community. So there was 24 of us. There were 19 ordinands and there was 5 in the team. So I've always found groups difficult, and if I could hide behind a role, if I was able to hide behind a role, but of course we can't do that. So here we were all together, and if the weather was bad, there was absolutely no way of escaping with people. Basically, you could go for a walk, or you couldn't go for a walk, and that's the only way you could get out, certainly. So my mind threw up wave upon wave of unhelpful ways of relating to this situation. So my joke was that I came on 101 dark ways of being in this situation. I mean, it really felt like it was 101, but it felt like an awful lot of different bits of conditioning all coming up. And some of them was just really painful to own up to, or painful to see that were not ways that I would have wanted to show up ever, and yet that's what happened. I think that's what happens. But as you were saying, Upekshavani, we were in a place where there was space, there was support, there was time to just see what was going on, listen to it all, and gradually it could become unstuck. Gradually it could loosen up and move on. The next one could come up. But they did listen. So they listened massively. And by the end, I'm going to sort of riff on some of the things you said, Upekshavani. And the feel of the retreat for me by the end was, we're all very different people, different ways of being and doing, but we tolerated each other, we tolerated our differences, we held each other very much in affection and in love, which is so beautiful. And no one was trying to force themselves or anyone else into a different shape. They're all very different from each other. But there we were, all of us with our energies freed up. We were able to be straightforwardly ourselves. We were able to be creative and to contribute each in our own different ways. And we just all flowed together, which is so beautiful. I think this is what we learn about sometimes on retreat, about the spiritual communities, is what it looks like. It was just amazing to live it. Where's the detail? There she is. Yeah. Absolutely transformative. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about silence. I'm going to talk about many different types of silence. So, the retreat was set up in such a way that it wasn't really possible to think ahead further than today and maybe tomorrow. And other than, we had to turn up to things on the timetable, we had to do our jobs, and, we had to do sort of normal life, sleeping and eating and washing things. But other than that, there's nothing that needed doing. There's nothing that needed planning or organising. And that whole part of me anyway, was concerned with, patterning the future to make it a particular shape. Eventually realised that it had absolutely nothing to do. It went offline. It actually went offline. There's also the silence of phones, computers, TV, none of that available, of course. The absence of the familiarity and comforts of home. The absence of the people that we usually rely on, our family here. The absence of all the ways that we normally keep our normal lives on some kind of an even keel. We've all got ways of making our lives okay for ourselves, at least to some extent. But there was all this silence and spaciousness around us that meant that gradually things started to change. And then there was the silence of the shrine room. So there were times when I felt unable to meditate.
But I was just held in the atmosphere that we made together by everyone else's meditation. And we inspired each other, maybe seeing the expression on someone's face, or the way someone curled up to sleep. There was just something almost tangible in that quality of silence. As we got more into silence and into meditation, gradually the internal chatter could die down. There was more of a sense of just simply being present. But the more present we felt, the more timeless everything felt. So we couldn't tell if we'd been on retreat for 10 years or for... the team used to joke about that, we all used to joke about that. Quite something. We were in a very secluded place, so there was no sound from the outside world. Very occasionally an aircraft or something, but really no sound from the outside world. There were no strangers, virtually no strangers. There were no dangers from the wildlife or from anything around. And eventually it came to me that where we were was just totally harmless. Totally harmless in a way that you just cannot imagine. It doesn't happen in normal life. In normal life you'll walk out on the road and there'll be some people you don't know. That's always got a tiny little level of something to it. It's just totally harmless. I think I've got the sort of nervous system that's always expecting and defending itself against potential threats around me. And because this harmlessness was seen so deeply, I think some of those defence mechanisms just had no choice really but to dismantle. I don't know if they can be dismantled, but certainly to go offline. It's just amazing. And then there's another type of quietening down that I noticed. So earlier in the retreat I noticed how much the voice in my head would go when I was listening to someone or I was reading something. There would always be this sort of commentary going, or I was arguing with what I was hearing or reading, or I was trying to second guess what was going to happen or something. And then I noticed towards the end of the retreat, when we were coming out of silence, it wasn't really happening anymore. And it was just wonderful. So it was possible to take in what we were hearing or what I was reading just so much more fully and so much more in its own integrity and its own wholeness. It's a bunch of different types of silence. Now I'm going to talk about music. So some of you may know that I gave the piano recital just a few weeks before we went on the long retreat. So my ears were just very attuned to music, to the sounds of our collective voices in the shrine, to the sounds of mantras or the sounds of the reciting. After a few weeks it felt like we were all really closely attuned to each other and we were all really attentive and everything just sounded so just really together. And then the preceptors arrived. But the amazing thing was that even though they'd just come on long journeys and you were just in the shrine for the first time, you were just as together as we were. It was just amazing. It just all came with this quality of attention. Really there, which was taking us weeks to develop. It was beautiful. Yeah, I'm not really going to say much about Ordination, but I will say that I was just so happy once we were all doing. Just a real intense happiness for days. Completely. Just an amazing feeling. And I'm still really happy. So partly that was because the waiting was over and there was a case around my neck. The eternal outsider in me that can't believe it'll ever get that. It's ever going to happen. They finally had to realise it was wrong. And there was just such a huge source of joy in my the visualisation practice I think that I was given, which is the green Tara, which is there on that, the end of the shrine. So happy I was. And in those quiet days post-ordination, it seemed there was a lot of creativity around. I don't think, probably not just for me. For me, that manifested as some mantras emerging. So first there was a mantra to Tara which had a sort of yearning feeling to it, as if calling to her. And then a bit later an image came to me of Tara. So Tara's, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, there's images of awakening, which I was trying to call us to awakening, to enlightenment. That's their function. So she's an image of awakening, and her usual form is of a beautiful young woman. But what came to me was an image of her, not as a person at all, but as a garden. One of those old English gardens, with mossy stone fountains, hidden nooks, warm wooden benches, a place that wraps itself around you with peace and beauty and soothing. And a mantra came that was inspired by that image, that atmosphere. And then one of the team was hankering after an advocate, this was Akashavana, was hankering after an Avalokiteshvara mantra that was different from the ones we'd been singing. We just had our two mantras, and I was sleepless in the middle of that night, and in the sleepless time, the mantra took shape. And we'll all have a chance to sing that later. And it was just such a joy singing together with everyone, including people here. So many beautiful voices, whether we all sing the same thing, or sometimes we sang in harmony, it was just beautiful. And we also sang a couple of times in the small group, which was really lovely. So that was a really big thread for me. And now I'll say this about my name, which has also been a great source of happiness. So Jnanarati means she who delights in wisdom and the knowledge that leads to wisdom. Jnana means wisdom or knowledge, and Rati means delight. Rati, I should say. And when I heard the name, I really recognised myself in it, and I felt deeply seen. Since I was really quite a young girl, I've had this sense of wisdom as being the highest good. So, it's been with me for a long time. And for a long while I've been inspired by the idea of acting from the widest perspective, in a way that takes all factors into account and that doesn't blind itself to what's inconvenient. So I could see when I used to work, I could see at work the bad consequences when people didn't act from that place, but instead were self-serving or optimistic or selective. Which we want to see in politics as well. And this wider perspective is a wisdom. Jnana also refers to some specific wisdoms or awarenesses in the Upekshavani tradition. Wisdom also means other things. It means discrimination. It means looking and then looking again, so not just going with the first idea of something. It means trying not to be deceived by appearances. And wisdom can be the gentlest, quietest thing, just a really gentle way of taking things in. And finally, wisdom doesn't make sense unless it's in the service of love and compassion. And then Rati, delight. What a delightful quality that is. It's the opposite of utilitarianism, it's the opposite of appropriation. And it helps get past them. It's a way of getting past them. I think it is probably basically mudita, which is sympathy, joy, and harmless. And it can be applied to anything in experience. So it can have quite an effect on negative emotions. So next time you're a bit annoyed about something, you might try taking delight in the feeling of being annoyed. See what happens. So wisdom and delight. So 2 paths worth a lifetime of exploration. I feel really, really great. So Dharmacharinis for giving me that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about, well, I've called it precariousness, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. There was a folder there somewhere at Akashavana which was explaining the history of the place, and it was just very moving. Some dedicated people had a vision. They raised money, they spent years looking for a suitable property, they found one, the building work, without all that happening, it wouldn't have been there. Akashavana is also there because there's some beautiful people with huge hearts of the community who live nearby. And they live there all year round, they look after it, they maintain it, they look after it. It's all beautiful people. And then we could go there because some other beautiful people with huge hearts suspended their lives to be the tune for us. And all our preceptors also suspended their lives for us to come and ordain us. And all these people have been sufficiently inspired to give up their lives, give up their time, so that we could have this amazing opportunity. And then I was there because many people in Cambridge and beyond are sufficiently inspired by what we have here to have patiently given me support over many years to slowly become what I can be, to stay in the way what I can be. So, and it feels so precarious because basically this is all selfless generosity, that's what it is, it's selfless generosity. In small and large and huge ways, and yet it happens. So it just seems amazing to me. You know, this web of selfless generosity, actually, it has high tensile strength that can take a lot of weight without breaking. It's quite something. Yeah, so this is to thank everyone involved in the retreat. I'm not going to go through lots of names, but it's to thank everyone involved in the retreat and everyone who's helped me along the way. And my lovely preceptor and everyone I've interacted with. But I would like to name two particular people who are not in Cambridge, and they're not in my Kula, but they have had a really big effect on my life, on my Dharma life, and that's Vajrasaki and Jnanarati. Yeah, and so a sort of dedication to end, that's quite the right word for it. So we've all taken some really weighty vows to practice the ethical precepts, to connect faithfully with our visualization practice, and to orient our lives towards enlightenment for the sake of all beings. My journey began in 2010 when I first came through the doors of the building in 2010. But in some ways it really began in 2014 on a retreat led by the Jnanarati. And this retreat had a massive effect on me, which lasted for months. It felt like some kind of lid had come off my mind, and it was just completely mind-blowing. So I felt then that I had found a real taste of freedom, and I wanted to follow that taste of freedom as far as it would take me, and for as long as that would take. And that's when I asked for ordination. So now, all these years later, I'm just so happy to be part of this order, to not be practicing alone, but to be following that taste of freedom alongside all of you who are also following your own taste of freedom. And to be doing this collectively for the rest of my life, so that every being can follow and follow their own taste of freedom. Goodness, it's lovely to be here, and it's also quite awe-inspiring as well to give my first talk, I guess, as an order member here at the Cambridge Buddhist Centre, which feels deeply significant and very nourishing. So thank you for coming, online and in person. My offering is a poem that I first heard whilst on a Tiratnaloka retreat, which I believe was the mythic context, and I chose it and read it as part of that very, very moving retreat back in 2014, so obviously an auspicious year. And what was incredible was that it was chosen by somebody else on the Akashavana retreat, and it was a different translation of Rilke's poem, The Swan, and it was almost an echo of the 2014 retreat in my heart. And there were many echoes on that ordination retreat. There seemed to be a bit of a theme throughout that 11 weeks, which I may talk about in a little bit. But it's my absolute pleasure to ask my dear friend Lizzie to come up and read the poem as an offering to you. Thank you.
The Swan. This clumsy living that moves lumbering, as if in ropes through what is not done, reminds us of the awkward way the swan walks. And to die, which is a letting go of the ground we stand on and cling to every day, is like the swan when they nervously let themselves down into the water, which receives them gaily and which flows joyfully under and after them, wave after wave, while the swan, unmoving and marvellously calm, is pleased to be carried, each minute more fully grown, more like a king, composed, farther and farther on.
Thank you. And I think in 2014 I wasn't entirely sure what was significant about that poem for me. And it felt like in those 11 years training for ordination, it felt like at that moment in Akashavana it kind of all made sense. And it was a real coming to grips with the kind of the lumbering way in which I lived my life, or still was living my life. But in a way it was a letting go, a spiritual dying into something that was a flow that could carry me to places I'd never imagined I would be able to get to. So it was an incredible experience into the forest retreat of luminous space, as Akashavana is. And that flow would not have been possible without so many different people in my life. And there are echoes in our talks throughout. I remember listening to Sacha Kamer actually when she came back from retreat last year, and her talk was just overflowing with gratitude. I'll never forget the impact of that. And I can remember thinking, goodness, how is that possible? How is that even possible? And now I know it. So thank you. And in my entire journey, I don't think I'd be here today were it not for Sunetri as my private preceptor, who has many times been very frustrated with me and my journey, but it was my journey, and the frustrations had to be there because they were part of my journey. So it's been a lifetime in itself, but one that has what it's enabled me to do is actually be with such deep gratitude and trust that somebody can be alongside me along the way gently guiding, nudging, being with me, and not always telling me what I need to do, but allowing me to find for myself what I need, what my steps in my journey need to be. So I am utterly, deeply grateful to you, Sunetri, for your love and for seeing me. And I'll talk more about that and later on in terms of the precious gift of my name, Jnanapadma, which I'll speak about later. Trust plays a huge part of my journey, and what also became incredibly important so that I could be the swan that allows the flow. I mean, those who know me deeply know that actually I'm not a water baby. The last thing I want to do is get into the water, but obviously it's a metaphor for completely and utterly letting go and for allowing me to be in the flow of what I need to transform. And I'm much happier on firm ground, and I'm much happier when there's an incline and I can get above, get my heart going and get above. Yeah, so Cambridge, yeah. There's something deeply unsettling, but anyway, we may get to that at some point. And the people that I would like to thank, some of you are in the room, my Kula, Birya Jyoti, to Suryamani, and to Jnanarati, and obviously Sunetri as well, who guided me and supported me, and whose friendship continues. So it's a deepening of that journey that continues. And to Tiratnaloka, and if it hadn't have been for those completely inspiring retreats, and to Kalya Chitta in particular, who is a friend and knows how to poke me in the right places, you know, I'm utterly, deeply grateful. But also to my friends who have been part of my Going for Refuge groups over the years, but I also just want to name Lizzie, who was here, who's part of my GFR group, to Amitasara, who's my dear, dear friend, and continues to be, and to Sheila D, who's just walked in, so thank you so much, and others who have been part of my GFR process along the years. And what became really clear to me at Akashavana, and this is also part of my journey, is recognising that it's a combination of my individual going for refuge and the collective who will support and who is part of the process. And I don't need to do it all alone. And I don't need to do it on behalf of other people. These are all my sanskaras. So I don't need to do it on behalf of other people. And I need to take that responsibility to be supported by the collective. And these were the echoes that kept coming up throughout the retreat for me. It was kind of an awe-inspiring, and Upekshavani and Jnanarati both mentioned it, an awe-inspiring fact that here were these, not only were the 5 women of the team who were there to support and guide us, but the team, the community team who give their lives to being Dharmapalas and supporting the retreat to happen. It is just mind-blowing. And they're there because it works. And this is another thing that kept coming up, another theme that kept coming up for me was, it works. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I will continue to be here. But it's why they practice too. They're not doing it for their individual gain, and neither am I doing my practice for my individual gain, but it's holding it in a much, much bigger space. And how better a space to really, really fully know that in my body and my mind, in a space where we were 900 metres, we were living at 900 metres high, and there were masses of rock and mountains surrounding us that were even higher. So it is completely, it's held within that space. So it's incredibly striking that I didn't need to do it alone. And that was part of my journey, but also that I needed to put the energy into it too. And being on that retreat for me was an incredibly mythic environment. Wearing robes almost felt like a sense of nakedness, despite the fact that we were clothed. The fact that we were processing like beautiful procession caterpillars gracefully in the space to and from the shrine room, connecting not only with each other in our robes and in the beauty of the landscape, but it was a real shedding. It was a shedding of our ego, of our identity, in being able to practice so deeply in that connected space as individuals and as a collective. So the theme kept coming throughout, which was so powerful. Which takes me to the nature aspect. I loved living at Akashavana, and I loved so much about, I don't want to repeat everything that Jnanarati and Upekshavani have said, but its main facets for me were about living so closely to nature to really see how impermanent the things around us actually are, by nature itself, and how beautiful too. So I had a deep connection with the earth. I camped for about 8 weeks. Were we camping? Akashavana, something like that. Who knows? It was timeless. We were camping for a long time. And what kept unfolding for me were the many different life cycles and stages that were around me. How can I don't think I've ever been able to see an orchid which popped up outside my tent, to be able to see it in all its different life cycles, from flowering to death to becoming a seed pod and an orchid pod, and just to really deeply connect with what that meant, and to see the conditions of the rain. It was an incredible experience to be so close to so many beings that once the rain arrived, the millipedes would just swarm, and it was quite something actually, because they loved my tent. And it was just really watching the mind. Was it my tent? Whose tent? You know, what was actually going on? But I was absolutely obsessed with the fact that I even counted 102 millipedes on the outside of my inner tent one morning after rain. So I was reflecting on this, and just the beauty of how they moved, but also, you know, what did it take for them to perk up with this wet? But I'll just give you a little bit of a glimpse from my journal one day. Storm last night, waves of light and thunder merging and clapping. Rain soaked the dry earth, my ickle friends are back. The rain inviting them into my tent. This morning's walk abundant with brilliant, gorgeous flowers, brilliant blues and whites, almost painful to the eye. The paper poppy this morning, its inside so delicate and intricate. The foxgloves here are rusty, and the most incredible grasses with tiny yellow bells of pollen clinging to them, chiming their delight at having been watered so intensely last night. And for me it was like this, really the ability to be able to stop the chatter, stop the noise, and to see how often have I ever seen pollen on a grass that takes on the shape and form of a bell that I can hear. I mean, it was just incredible. And I was very struck, what I was struck with was just the koans, the kind of the sort of the double-edged meaning of various things, which I'll go on to talk about my Yidam Manjushri. But it felt very much that we were living in this dry, scorched earth that held and allowed the flow of such deep practice for us as practitioners within it. So there was this kind of feeling of being quenched, whilst also sort of experiencing really dry conditions, which I absolutely loved. And there was kind of the immense space that was around us, and yet the deep, personal, intricate work that we were doing on our own. and just this notion of trust that I had, of how I can deeply trust. And I knew I had some issue. For years I've known that I've been working with, I'm not entirely sure who I trust or how I can trust. And what actually came really deeply for me within the retreat was actually, this was about, I need to trust myself. And it was this amazing, incredible moment, that silence and the experience of having the wisdom of people who know me deeply, to be able to say, what is going, what do you need to be trusted? And what actually came was, I actually need to trust myself, that I am enough as I am, to practice, to be the daughter of the Buddha, to take on the vows and to practice deeply, and for it to affect and change my life so that I can come back into this world and practice more deeply. So these koans kept coming for me when I thought, actually it's about other people, they need to change their ways in order for me to be able to trust them. There was a moment in the shrine room, funnily enough, quite close to ordination, when I was deeply perturbed about somebody else's movement and how they were disturbing my peace, and why was it I could no longer practice because these preceptors were shuffling. And it took me a while to realise, it's my own mind that's disturbed. Something big is happening. Yeah, I'm coming to terms, I'm coming to grips with something enormous that words can't even describe. It's no wonder I'm being slightly put off kilter here. So it was kind of just deeply seeing that. And so Najee never said, it's you. It was about the unfolding of what that meant for me. So that was incredibly important. I also had this experience of fear whilst camping, and the unknown, and the deep connection that I had with just recognising some of my samskaras of wanting to know things, of wanting to be able to, which is, I guess, linked to control. But also, I'd have moments early on in the camping experience, and I could hear wind. I mean, it's incredible. The wind exists. But not knowing exactly, and you could hear it coming down the mountain, but never quite knowing how it was going to hit the tent, and whether it was going to blow the tent off course, or whether I'd be totally safe. And it was a real, but it was that sitting with or lying with it and just knowing, actually, I can be with this, and just kind of sitting with what that meant. So even camping, even the wind, even camping, there were so many dharmic lessons in just being in that space and the conditions that were around that. So I could know when an ibex would you could hear almost a pitter-patter of feet, and then the munching of grass. And then I was camping on the lower Ratnasambhava terrace. And my camping companion, Abayaruchi, would say, did you hear the grunting of the wild boar, or was it you? In the middle of the night. So there were, it was a real kind of closeness to nature that I've never experienced in sort of that length of time, and what that meant for my heart to really open and to be connected with being on a rock that was, 23 million years old. And knowing that actually what I was doing, what we were doing as individuals and a collective was so deeply significant, and yet the rock sees it all in 23 million years plus a day. So it was kind of this holding, we are deeply significant, and yet insignificant too at the same time, and how that plays out was something that was really, really powerful. So, the greatest gift was being there, and that wouldn't have happened without a collective. The greatest gift was being seen and trusting somebody that I put my trust and faith into her practice and the coolest practice for so many years, and to be given such a powerful name as Jnanapadma, and a beautiful name, and I loved it from the get-go, was just immense. Because in my heart, I know it's an aspirational name. I know that I will keep, the name means she who is like a lotus of wisdom and knowledge. I'm still very much working on the and knowledge, but at this time in my life, hopefully to come to terms with that. But it is deeply recognising that I'm unfolding, and that wisdom, the wisdom that I see is the wisdom that I experience, and that I'm sitting with that and allowing it, as opposed to clouding some of my samskaric tendencies of being other regarding before really looking at myself. So that's how I'm with the name today. And it's a practice, and I love it. I have loved Manjushri for some time, and what I'm completely drawn to is he is the bodhisattva of wisdom, is the power of the sword cutting through delusion and cutting through the fact that we're not separate. So it's cutting through duality at the tip of the flaming sword into one. So it's a koan for me in itself, cutting two into one, cutting separateness into one. I'm still working on that, but I think again it's a lifetime process. But it's around looking at something that seems incredibly powerful, and what I'm conditioned to think of a sword as something really violent, and yet it's not. It's something sharp and clean. And that is my practice of deeply seeing that as my transcendental force, I guess. And with that, I'm deeply grateful for receiving that practice from Sunetri, who is winding me up now. I just wanted to say, or to end, by saying that as a daughter of the Buddha, that mountain is still there, but it's also within me, that I've breathed it, that it's become part of who I am, and that's just incredibly nourishing. So thank you.
Well, having had those three beautiful accounts, very different experiences of being mountain, but very the same as well. The same and different. What we're going to do is we're going to mark this wonderful time having three Dharmacharinis.
And it's also delighting in the Buddha and the fact that we're here, that it's possible for us to have this practice and delighting in the Dharma and the Sangha. So what we'll be doing is we're going to do it in cause and response, as we always do. And after the first verse, we're going to hear Jnanarati's offering, which is the Avalokiteshvara mantra that came to her.
But hopefully we'll all sing it together.
Yes.
I'm not just,
But it is your offering, Nora.
This is my
So Jnanarati will start us off, and I think she set up some people to sing alongside.
Well, I'll start. Hopefully we can do the normal thing. I'll just start us off, and after I've been through it twice, if you feel confident with it, please start joining in. If it takes you a bit longer to feel confident with it, then join in when you feel confident.
Yes, no, absolutely. But I think you were going to ask a few people to learn it too. Yeah, great. Yes, so when you feel ready, you can join in on the mantra and chant that with her. And during that mantra offering, what we'll do is we'll be able to come up and make offerings at the shrine, come up and light a candle. And we'll start with the 3 new Dharmacharinis, so they can come up together. Once you've got the mantra established, you can come up and then make your offerings. And then we can all follow, and I'd say come up in 5s or whatever. Don't wait, if you see a space, just come down and offer. And it can be like a flow, just like a flow, like a river of offerings. And everyone's welcome to come and light a candle if they wish. So that's what we're doing after the first verse. And at the end of the puja, we'll just sit for a bit until I ring the bell, just to absorb it. And then after that, we'll go and have tea and cake. So just settling down to start. The threefold puja, opening reverence. We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha,
The perfectly enlightened one.
the perfectly enlightened one,
The shower of the way.
the shower of the way.
We reverence the Dharma.
We reverence the Dharma,
The teaching of the Buddha,
the teaching of the Buddha,
which leads from darkness to light.
which leads from darkness to light.
We reverence the Sangha,
We reverence the Sangha,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
that inspires and guides.
that inspires and guides.
Om Mani Padme
reverence the three Junes. We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha
And aspire to follow him.
and aspire to follow him.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
What the Buddha overcame, we too. What the Buddha overcame,
What the Buddha overcame,
we too can overcome.
we too can overcome.
What the Buddha attained,
What the Buddha attained,
we too can attain.
we too can attain.
We reverence the Dharma
We reverence the Dharma
and aspire to follow it.
and aspire to follow it
With body,
with body,
speech,
speech,
and mind,
and mind
until the end.
until the end.
The truth in all its aspects,
The truth in all its aspects,
the path in all its stages.
the path in all its stages.
We aspire to study,
We aspire to study,
practice,
practice, realize.
We reverence the Sangha
We reverence the Sangha
and aspire to follow it.
and aspire to follow it.
The fellowship of those
The fellowship of those
who tread the way,
who tread the way,
as one by one,
as one by one,
we make our own commitment,
we make our own commitment,
an ever-widening circle.
an ever-widening circle.
The Sangha grows.
The Sangha grows.
Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha,
Reverencing the Buddha,
we offer flowers.
we offer flowers,
Flowers that today
flowers that today
are fresh and sweetly blooming.
are fresh and sweetly blooming,
Flowers that tomorrow
flowers that tomorrow
are faded and falling.
are faded and fallen.
Our bodies too,
Our bodies too,
like flowers,
like flowers,
will pass away.
will pass away.
Reverencing the Buddha,
Reverencing the Buddha,
we offer candles.
we offer candles.
To him who is the light,
To him who is the light,
we offer light.
we offer light.
From his greater lamp,
From his greater lamp,
a lesser lamp we light within us.
a lesser lamp we light within us.
The lamp of Bodhi,
The lamp of Bodhi,
shining within our hearts.
shining within our hearts.
Reverencing the Buddha,
Reverencing the Buddha,
we offer incense.
we offer incense.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
The fragrance of the perfect life,
The fragrance of the perfect life,
sweeter than incense,
sweeter than incense,
spreads in all directions.
spreads in all directions.